Okay, we will call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Special Planning Commission meeting Thursday, September 7th, 2023 at 6 p.m. I'm going to start with a roll call.
Okay, Vice Chair Natasha Basso.
Here.
I'm sorry, Chair Natasha Basso.
Here.
Vice Chair Jen Stewart. Commissioner John Dinan.
Here.
Commissioner Ben Rubin is absent. And Commissioner Tidy Zamora.
Here.
And Commissioner Alternate Steve Link is in the audience. And Commissioner Alternate Michael Sid Alterman filling in for Ben at the podium.
Here.
Thank you.
A conflict of interest. Any planning commission member or staff who has a direct conflict of interest on any scheduled agenda item to be considered is to declare their conflict at this time. Okay, none. Moving on. Public comments. At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. Individual comments will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes per person, and each person may speak once during this time. Time cannot be yielded to another person. Under state law, matters presented during the public comment period cannot be discussed or acted upon. For record purposes, please state your name and city of residence. Make sure your comments are directed to the Planning Commission members.
Is this going to be recorded? Are we talking about the tiny homes? Are we allowed to talk about that now, or are we going to wait for the If I may, Madam Chair, no, tiny homes is on the agenda. So this is for items not on the agenda.
Have anybody on Zoom? Ben on Zoom?
Aye. Present.
Okay. You don't have any comments?
No.
Okay. Okay, closing the public comment period. Moving on to the consent calendar. All items listed on the consent calendar are to be acted upon by a single action of the Planning Commission unless otherwise requested by an individual Planning Commission member or member of the public for special consideration. Otherwise, the recommendation of staff will be accepted and acted upon by motion of the Planning Commission. Item 2.1, posting of the agenda. The agenda for the September 7th, 2023 Special Planning Commission meeting was posted on the City Community Center Bulletin Board, City Hall North and South Bulletin Boards, Post Office, City website, and emailed to the library on August 31st, 2023. And item 2.2, approval of the September 7th, 2023 agenda. This provides an opportunity for the Planning Commission or staff to recommend that an item be placed on the agenda for discussion or to adjust the proposed agenda to allow an item to be taken out of order.
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, roll call. Chair Basso.
Yes.
Vice Chair Stewart.
Yes.
Commissioner Dinan.
Yes.
Commissioner Zamora.
Yes.
And Commissioner Alterman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item 2.3, approval of the minutes of the July 18th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting having been read by the individual planning commissioners and stands approved as submitted.
Motion to approve item 2.3. Second.
Okay, roll call. So Natasha Basso has to abstain because she was absent. So Vice Chair Stewart, Commissioner Dinan,
Yes.
Commissioner Zamora,
Yes.
and Commissioner Alterman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Planning Commission public hearings. Item 3.1 was published August 2nd, 2023 in the Riverbank News and was continued to September 7th, 2023 from the meeting of August 15th, 2023 by a vote of 5-0. The public notice for item 3.2 was published on August 23rd, 2023 in the Riverbank News. Item 3.1, a tentative subdivision map 01-2023 and development plan 04-2023 for the Pocket Avenue Senior Apartments at 3318 Pocket Avenue.
Madam Chair and Council, Planning Commissioners, good to see all of you this evening. As you mentioned, this is the Pocket Avenue Senior Apartments, a tentative map and a development plan, which is architecture and site plan review for a planned development zone. The request is to create 7 separate lots with a tentative map approval. This would the map features 6 buildings, each on their own separate lot. And then the sidewalks and parking and drive and all the common areas would be on a 7th separate parcel that would have cross access between the buildings and yeah. So the general plan designation is higher density residential and the zoning is planned development. These approvals occurred early last year in 2022. The developer didn't have a really good idea of what he wanted for the architecture of the buildings at the time. So he did submit something conceptual when these 2 approvals went forward. Now he has returned with better plans and a tentative map. So the project is consistent with the general plan. Policy Design 3.2 discusses attractive residential subdivisions in the city. Policy Design 8.3 talks about the use of high-quality materials for a project like this. Policy Design 10.1 talks about pedestrian and bicycle access, which this project definitely has. Here is an aerial view of the site. It's the empty parcel with the house in the very center of it, which would be demolished if this project is approved. As you can see, it's surrounded by single-family residential and a park off to the left side there. Here is a copy of the tentative map. It shows the 6 separate buildings with the parking in between. You can see between the buildings there are sidewalks for people to get out and socialize and do some walking around the complex. The original concept that was brought forward last year showed 3 long, thin buildings, more like a motel strip, but these are more like apartments. So as I mentioned before, the architectural and site plan review is processed as it's called a development plan for planned development zone parcels. Here's a picture of the site plan. As you can see, most of the parking is in the center. On that main shared lot, there are 3 separate areas for trash enclosures and recycling that would be shared between the buildings. They would have agreements between them on the maintenance. And the areas between the building with those sidewalks would have landscaping. And then the whole perimeter of the site is showing landscaping as well.
Is this the new computer?
Here are the new elevations for the buildings. As you can see that the roof line varies. There's architectural interest in some details on the front, the placement of the windows, some of the doors are recessed. And then the buildings actually contain both 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom. So the buildings will look a little bit different. Most of the colors of the buildings will be the same. And then there will be subtle color differences. Like one will have some reds in it, another will have some blues in it. So they'll be complementary, yet they'll look a lot the same as well. Here's another version that shows the red. Here's some of the floor plans. As you can see, nice spacious living areas and bedrooms. They all have little covered porches and a fairly wide open floor plan. Here's one of the smaller units that has one bedroom, yet still is fairly spacious in the living room, dining room, kitchen area. The project was reviewed for CEQA, and it qualified for an exemption for qualified housing projects. This was brought forward and approved during the general plan, the general plan amendment and the rezone for this property. And it is recommended that the Planning Commission approve the resolution for the tentative map, and we have a separate resolution for the development plan itself. I'd be happy to answer any questions. The applicants are here today, and they would like to follow me with a presentation of their own to provide a little bit more details for you and what their vision is.
My name is Stacy Wellnitz. I'm with Commercial Arc in Modesto, and I'm the architect who prepared the plans. And I'm here representing the owner and the applicant for this project. And as you can see, we spent a lot of time on this project developing it, trying to provide a really thoughtful design that fit into the neighborhood, providing something that felt like a single family residence, because that's the neighborhood context that we're in. And really kind of just that was congruent, was a nice community space, and didn't feel like an apartment complex. And so we are here to answer any questions or address any concerns that you might have. And
I have a couple of questions. I see that it wants to be, you want to divide it into 7 different parcels. How are the common areas going to be maintained, or who is responsible for the common areas? Is there going to be an HOA established?
there is going to be an HOA established, so the ownership and will provide the maintenance for all of the common area facilities. And that's why we did the 7th parcel, so that there was an HOA established. Everybody can share parking, there's shared trash, shared bicycle parking, landscaping. So the tenants will not have any responsibility to maintain any of the landscaping or exterior materials.
Okay, the other thing that in the documentation we were provided, it states that each of the buildings could be sold separately if market conditions change. How is that going to be quantified?
Sure, the buildings are going to be designed so that in the future, if we needed to or wanted to provide parcel lines in between and condo them out, then they could be condoed and sold separately as each unit. At this point, right now, we're not proposing that. This is a purely, each building is on its own parcel and going to be rented out.
Okay, thank you.
If I might comment pretty quickly, I left out a portion of my information, which is that when this originally came before the Planning Commission, the proposal was for 40 units of housing. Now it's been reduced to 28.
I have a question on the potential of dividing this, selling off one portion at a time. How would we manage splitting those lots?
There would have to be an application for a condominium map.
Did you say these are going to be rental units?
Correct. Correct. Okay.
Now we would like to open it up to public comment.
My name is John Keller. I think I've seen you guys before on the first round. So you should have received a letter that I emailed today. I'm just going to kind of summarize it and go through it, kind of read it for you. My wife and daughter and I have lived in Sterling Ridge for about 18 years. Along with several members of our neighborhood, we still oppose the proposed senior apartment complex at 3318 Pocket Avenue. On April 19th, 2022, the commission voted 4-1 against recommending the PD's rezoning and HDR general plan amendment for the property. However, the city council did not side with the recommendation and voted unanimously to move forward with the rezoning and general plan amendment on July 26, 2022. The plan moved forward, even though a petition was presented signed by 138 adult residents representing 71 households from the immediate area against such a rezoning. Now that the property has been rezoned to PD and the general plan amended for HDR, there are still several issues that need to be brought to the surface. We're hoping that the Planning Commission will take note of our previous grievances against the project as well as some new items. The developer is presenting a tentative subdivision map which will break up the 2-acre parcel into 7 lots. According to the City of Riverbank Municipal Code, Section 152.029 concerning lots, paragraph D, all lots or parcels being created must front with access on a city street or state highway. If you review the drawing submitted to the city by the developer, you'll notice that they are proposing to break up each building as a separate lot, which we've already discussed, and a common area, parking area, as an additional lot. According to their proposal, only what they describe as Lot A has city street frontage at Pocket Avenue, and all other lots have no front with access on a city street. This would result in what is otherwise known as landlocked parcels. This is in violation of the municipal code, and this alone should invalidate the tentative subdivision map. There's also no other example of this type of lot division inside the whole city, and I've reviewed the parcel maps many times. I don't see any type of breakup of parcels in this way. For example, the owner of the lot in the common area could be different than the building owners, which could potentially cause a conflict, as building owners would require access to the driveway and parking spaces owned by another entity. Now, I realize that maybe that's not the case initially, but who's to prevent something like this happening in the future? You know, I know there's a lot of processes you have to go through to get to that point, but that's a concern that should be brought up. This project has been compared numerous times by the developer and others to be similar to the housing development at Prospectors Court, located in the Crossroads subdivision. In that case, each parcel has city street frontage, so that meets the requirements of the above municipal code section. And I've included a kind of a snapshot of the map there in the document. Another point that needs to be brought up is the parking situation. It is understood that the parking spots requirements are met according to the Riverbank Municipal Code, based upon the size and number of units. However, the issue of overflow parking has not been addressed sufficiently. Since the age to reside in the apartments is only 55, it's more than likely that residents will be working and driving if they are closer to that minimum age. It would also not be unusual for a couple to purchase and live in a one-bedroom apartment and have 2 vehicles for commuting back and forth to work. Due to the current housing market and economic conditions, it would not be unusual that an individual at least 18 could reside in the same apartment, which is allowed according to the Housing for Older Persons Act of 1995, or HOPA. Since HOPA also requires only 80% of the units to have one person residing to be at least 55 years of age, this would mean that potentially 5 units could have younger residents possessing more vehicles. And if parking is assigned, then this makes the overflow parking situation worse. As it stands now, street parking on Pocket Avenue is extremely limited, and it really is. If anybody goes, just take a drive down there, you'll see what I'm talking about. So this will make it much more difficult for existing residents that rely on those places to be available. Traffic is a subject that has been brought up several times throughout the review process of this project, but is still a major concern. Although the number of units was trimmed down to 28, and I believe that's in part due to the parking spot requirements and lot size, traffic in the immediate area will no doubt be affected. Since there is only one entry exit for the complex, this means that all vehicles must take Pocket Avenue. The stretch between 3318 Pocket Avenue and Roselle Avenue will undoubtedly see a spike in traffic, as that is the best route in and out of the neighborhood. And in the last city council meeting concerning this topic, the developer shared a potential traffic impacts for this complex based on a study. However, I'm not aware of a recent traffic study that has been conducted for Pocket Avenue. I might be wrong, but I'm not aware of it. And that's the main thoroughfare through the Sterling Ridge subdivision. So although we're not discussing the rezoning general plan amendment at this time, I would like to reiterate that this complex has no place in the center of our established neighborhood of single Sterling Ridge subdivision. That's the entire phase of the subdivision. Sign the petition against any type of project other than single family housing at this parcel, which includes over 50% of them that live within 300 feet of the property.
Excuse me, sir. I'm sorry to interrupt, but you've gone over the 3 minutes. So if you could wrap it up.
Oh, I'm almost done. Sorry. And that said, that number would be higher if we continued our efforts, which was cut short due to lack of time and available volunteers. In addition, the many residents we've approached that didn't sign would sign today, but some were not aware of it. So basically, I'm just saying that there are plenty of properties out there that would be more appropriate, I think, for the complex, but 3318 Pocket Avenue is not one of them. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, Commissioner. Randy Brecky, 1500 Sanford Avenue in Modesto, California, co-developer of this project, and I appeared before this commission previously. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. I'm not sure the amount of research that Mr. Keller's done on parcel maps, and I think that's beholden upon staff to do that analysis and advise you on what should or shouldn't be done from a legal standpoint as well as from a good planning standpoint. I can share with you my experience in commercial development for decades now, and it's not uncommon at all. And I suspect that with our large commercial project here in town, you'll find the same thing with parcels being created that do not front city streets. As long as there's a common area and as long as there's recorded easements over those properties, including reciprocal access easements and reciprocal parking easements, et cetera, it is highly common in the development world in this state and other states. And certainly Riverbank is not any different in that regard. That is the particular reason why you have the recording documents that are required as conditions of approval, which would include the CC&Rs, which would include reciprocal access agreements, easements, et cetera, for the establishment of that are recorded and run with the land. It also is good planning because I don't think Mr. Keller and his family or the other residents would appreciate having 4 long linear buildings that ended up on the street and where you'd have access coming in multiple points off of Pocket Road as a planning deviation to this wonderfully thoughtful plan that was conceived and put in front of you this evening, with less density, much more attention to architectural detail, and less impact and as Stacy said, much more in harmony with the surrounding single family residential development. So I just want to make sure that that is addressed. The traffic study that was done before, the traffic analysis that was done by a gentleman who's done considerable amount of work. He's no longer with us. He passed away recently. Wonderful man, has been doing this for years. And he provided to the Planning Commission as well as the City Council the minimal impacts that this will have and the relative traffic rating, if you will, for Pocket Road and the adjoining streets. Those facts produced by someone who's in that industry and a well-regarded professional in that industry for decades, those speak for themselves. And that's hopefully what will be relied upon by you and by other decision makers. I wanted to address something else with respect to the parking. Again, this is a market rate. This is a market development. So it is in the property owner's interest to make certain that they're contemplating the success of this project, including such aspects as parking and the amenities. So all of that's been taken care of. There is a target market for this, regardless of the theories about the people that we're going to come and go and all the rest of that Mr. Keller's putting in front of you. It's a very limited size development, and it's targeted for people of a certain age. If they contemplate having more people than that. Number one, there are ways that we can ferret that out in the marketing and the management of the project and how that's done, as well as the documents on the sale and the CC&Rs. But in addition to that, it would be not in their best interest to do that. Clearly would not be in their best interest as a renter. And these are for rent properties. So if we have a problem, they would be bounced out of the property. We're not going to let one or two bad seeds, ruin it for everybody that's there. This project will be managed by ownership. The reason for creating the parcels is primarily for phasing and for financing purposes and for estate planning purposes. The owner development of this property owns properties and has for decades. He's not a developer that builds and sells. This is intended to be a long-term hold project for this developer. But again, the parcelization's being done to facilitate phasing, planning, estate planning, and financing, because we don't know what the market's going to tell us and exactly on how fast it's going to go and what the terms and conditions are for financing. This facilitates that. And all the recorded easements and documents that go along with that make sure that everything is cohesive. And by the way, the lenders all require that. You couldn't finance this project without that. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer. Thank you.
Have any other comment? Anything via Zoom?
No, nothing on Zoom.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Well, first, I think we should ask for comments or questions from the commission.
Okay. Anybody in the commission have any questions?
No.
I'd just like to ask staff, the gentleman that is opposed to this project mentioned this requirement that all these units have access to the street. I'm assuming you investigated this and everything is kosher?
Yes, this has been reviewed over the past year by our city engineer, and he provided me with documentation that this was a good tentative map. He made comments on the original design of it. We also had the fire department look at it as far as the one entrance into the property, and both of them have signed off on this.
Thank you.
No other questions? Do we have a motion?
I move to one as stated.
I will second. That was me.
Okay, roll call for resolution 2023-008 to approve the tentative map. Chair Basso, Vice Chair Stewart.
Give me a minute. No.
Commissioner Zamora,
Yes.
Commissioner Dinan,
Yes.
and Commissioner Alterman.
Yes.
Okay, it's approved 4-1.
Thank you.
And we need another roll call for. Okay.
Second resolution.
I don't know if Commissioner Ben Rudolph has a comment.
I don't know. We for him, so I thought he was absent.
He's not to participate as a commissioner this evening.
Do we need a motion for the second resolution?
Yes, we do.
So
Yeah.
moved.
Second.
2023-009. Chair Basso,
Yes.
Vice Chair Stewart,
Yes.
Commissioner Zamora,
Yes.
Commissioner Dinan,
Yes.
and Commissioner Altman.
Yes.
That's approved 5-0.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 3.2, Architecture and Site Plan Review 07-2023, David Elliott and Associates at 2201 Morrill Road in Riverbank.
Good evening again, Counselor. Make you guys council members. Good evening again, commissioners. As mentioned, this is the Bridge Covenant Church Tiny Houses. It's architectural and site plan review. So the project proposes an 8-unit tiny house village of transitional housing that would be behind the church. The general plan designation is low-density residential. The zoning is single-family residential. I'm going to go ahead and try to explain the density for you. So the general plan low-density residential is 0 to 8 units per net acre is required. This project has 103.2, that should be net square feet instead of net acre. My apologies on that. So our code states that each tiny house should have 1,800 square feet, whether it is an 1,800 square foot lot, if the property is a subdivision and going to be sold, or 1,800 square feet worth of space around it if it's going to be rental property. So if you take the 17,303 net acre feet and divide it by 1,800 square feet, and just to let you know that net acre means that the footprint of the church has been moved. That's why it's considered net. That equates to 9 units that would be permitted on this lot for the density. We round down per our code. So this site would be permitted to have 9 units and the project proposes 8 units. So when you do the math, it works out to 5.2 units per net acre and thus meets the general plan low density at 0 to 8 units per net acre. Here's an aerial view of the property right in the center. As you can see, Oakdale Road is off to the left. At the bottom of the page, and MID Canal is at the top of the page, and then you have Zellman Court to the right, which would be to the east for this project. The church is the building and a small driveway paved, and it sits closer to Morrill than the rest of the property. There is a block wall on the Oakdale side. This is a view from Morrill Road and shows the vacant property between Zellman and the church itself. So from Zellman Court, and you take a look at the church, the church has this space between Zellman Court and itself. Part of it is the big parcel that it sits on that will have the 8 tiny houses behind it. But part of it is already existing lots that could have a single family residential on it. Court there. So here's a schematic drawing of it, what's existing. You have the church, that parking area, and as well as the building that's going to be removed or has been removed. And here's the proposed site. As I mentioned, there's the property along Zellman that could contain several single-family residential houses. Then the dark shaded area is the parking for the church and the tiny houses. And then the tiny houses are set up in the back with, I thought this was in color, 6 of the smaller units that are 400 square feet, 1 at 600 square feet, and 1 at 800 square feet. Here's the elevation of the 400 unit. Excuse me. I also have the elevation there for the 600 unit. As you can see, there's a little bit of a difference in the the way the roof is presented there. The smaller ones will have solar panels like the larger ones, but the 600 and 800s will also have some skylights as well. And then here's the 800 unit. They all kind of blend together, but they do have some subtle differences between them. So these would be constructed off-site and assembled on-site. The colors of these structures will match the church's color of tans. They will have metal roofs with solar panels on each roof, and as I mentioned, the larger units will have skylights as well. They each have fencing surrounding it. Off to the side of the church, they're looking at doing 10 raised beds for community garden. And then also where there is a basketball court that's currently existing, which I thought was a structure earlier, is they're going to do a playground there for the kids. So the general plan for the policy design 4.6, the city will allow common ownership of parking, courtyard gardens, recreational facilities, and open spaces for cluster, cottage, and attached single-family residential housing. Policy design 5.1, the city would require placement of windows and active rooms and new structures so they can view the surroundings, the yards, the corridors, entrances, and create a sense of community and security looking out for each other. Policy design 6.3, the city will require side and building access for pedestrians and bicyclists. There will be sidewalks that connect these tiny houses, as well as the church building itself, both to each other, as well as to the sidewalk on the streets. And I'd like to also mention that part of minimalizing the conflicts with motor vehicle traffic, the people who stay in these houses will also be able to walk to bus stops. There are 2 bus stops on Oakdale Road, and there are 2 bus stops on Morrill Road. And while Riverbank has 2 different bus routes that service our community, they intersect at this intersection of Oakdale Road and Morrill. So for people who will be staying in these transitional homes that do not have vehicles, they will have access to buses. Policy design 6.5, multifamily housing projects shall provide open spaces with a wide variety of activities. Larger properties could include plazas, courtyards, small parks, and other open spaces like community gardens or a playground for the residences. The project is exempt from additional CEQA analysis for Class 32 infill development projects. There are 5 requirements that have to do with, they have to be consistent with the general plan. They have to be on a parcel that's less than 5 acres. They also have to have utilities nearby. And as you go down the list of the 5, they do meet all 5 of those criteria. So the recommendation is to approve the architectural and site plan review for a tiny house village based on the findings within the general plan policies that I mentioned above. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. We do have the applicants here as well, and they would also like to do a presentation for you.
This is very unique for us. I'm Joe Duran. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Stanislaus Equity Partners. Been around for about 2.5 years now. Our role as Community Development Corporation is to try to find projects that really blend into the local community to provide access to individuals that normally couldn't have housing. Specifically, I'm not talking about homeless. I'm talking about individuals that are on the borderline of becoming homeless because there's not enough properties. This specific one has to do with single moms. It's been selected for single moms. There's 17,000 units in Stanislaus County that we're short regarding our housing issue. And these types of projects help us alleviate individuals, families in particular, from becoming homeless. So I'm really excited about this particular project. It's a labor of love that's really a combination of about 4 or 5 different organizations coming in to do this. And so I'd like to invite Eric Johnson, who is from R3, and he can talk a little bit more about the specific project. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you so much, by the way, for hosting a special meeting. I know that wasn't on your calendar, so very much appreciate that. So I'm Eric Johnson. I'm with R3. We're a nonprofit out of Monterey County. We focus in on micro housing. We call micro houses as opposed to tiny houses, which often people see on TV on wheels and trailers. That's not what these are. These are on permanent foundations. They're full living units with restrooms and bedrooms, and they're just small living spaces, if you will. So one unique thing with R3 and part of our heart and mission is building these units as well in partnership with prisons. We do them in vocational programs and train up prisoners how to gain job skills and training in becoming proficient in construction. So when they get out, they can find work and occupations. We also work with youth build programs. One in particular in our county called Rancho Cielo is for 18 to 24-year-olds who either did not make it in traditional education or kept appearing in juvenile hall with a judge who started a campus there for vocational work for youth that are, again, being trained in construction skills. So we try and do those in those unique environments, again, for the purposes of both fulfilling a substantial need in the industry for educated and skilled workers in the construction trades, but obviously also keeping them from becoming homeless or on the street themselves, or in many cases in Salinas, coming out of poverty and moving into a sustainable middle class type of work. So this project is great. We enjoy working with churches in particular. Even though we are not a distinctly faith-based organization, we are driven a lot by working with churches who this is an extension of their mission. And many churches either work with single moms or with families or maybe seniors, distinct environments of people that they're trying to serve based on the community needs. And that's what this project is based about. It's really to help people that otherwise would not be able to attain housing simply because it's too expensive and couldn't afford it. So the project is surrounded by agencies locally, which you know very well. One of them is Stanco, another one is Center for Human Services. Joe from Dept. We've had really good support behind the project for people that can provide wraparound services as needed. The other thing that's really excited about this is CalAIM is helping to fund the project from a capital standpoint. CalAIM is a superstructure for Medi-Cal for California, and Medi-Cal has expanded tremendously amount of services that it's providing at a state level, including housing navigation, employment, behavioral health, all sorts of support services. So whatever the plethora of people are that we end up with in the housing units that we screen and welcome in can receive services they might need above and beyond what's normally available in the community. So we're really proud of that too. It's a great addition to the project. So these little communities become communities unto themselves. They help build relationships and build into families with each other. The play structures and so on for the kids that might be living there are also, again, to restore and help build that community. So be happy to answer any further questions, but that's kind of the nature of the project. We're doing a very similar project, by the way, at Free Will Baptist Church in Modesto. We're about a month and a half ahead of this project there. They're building 9 units there that has been approved and is moving forward, and already constructing walls and structures there. So it's a very similar project. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I wanted to have also Steve Madison, if I can, from Stanco, come and talk about the management of the property and oversight of residents and how that happens. For those who don't know Stanco, they manage a tremendous amount of real estate and especially low-income housing throughout the county, and do a marvelous job of doing it. So I can have Steve to share a little bit about what they do and how they'll be involved in the project. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Steve Madison. I'm the Executive Director for Stanco. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And among the many things we do is we provide property management services for other nonprofit organizations. We manage just south of 300 units throughout Stanislaus County. And we are a partner on this project. And my job is to make sure that if this project's approved and we move forward, that You only hear about it again in good ways because we want our clients who reside at the property to have a harmonious relationship with the community. We want them to follow all of the housing requirements that they'll be required to follow by virtue of the funding for the project and the program rules. And we want to make sure that everything's done according to what the lenders want, what the city requires, and what our partners in the project want to accomplish. So we will have a presence on the site, probably more so than anybody else in the project, because we inspect the units, we inspect the grounds, we make sure that they're maintained, and we integrate our operations with, if there's an existing crime-free housing ordinance or other neighborhood watch, we integrate our properties with those, and it's our responsibility to get the clients involved in that. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I have a question. I think it's probably a great idea. It's just, I'm a little confused. It seems there are so many different groups that are involved in this. I'm still not sure, is the church on this property going to be actively involved, or is this group, this STEP group, just they've acquired this property? So I'm not quite sure actually who's in charge of this. Is it the church? Is it the STEP group, or is it Stanislaus County?
My pay grade. I'm going to let one of these gentlemen answer. Thank you.
A great question. The church very much wants to be involved in any way they can and wants to support not only inviting people into, in fact, using the facility for doing some trainings around, for example, financial management or other kind of skill sets that they need, but they want to be involved in the lives of the people to the extent they want to invite them into being part of the church and part of the gathering they have on an ongoing basis. They're a resident now on the property, if you will. STEP is the owner of the property. The church sits on that property. They have an agreement with STEP to not only do some renovations on the existing structure, but to support them to continue to operate to the extent that they're operating church services and or services on the campus. So they're going to be the centerpiece. They'll be there. Pastor is here with his wife as well. You can ask them directly, but they want to be involved in the project directly into building to people's lives. They don't want to be involved in property management. That's a very good separate function to have. It's very appropriate to have. And that's something that Steve and his staff do very well. But as a partnership of everyone being involved at every level, the church very much will be a centerpiece of it.
Thank you.
You bet.
So then STEP is the owner of the property? Will
That's
STEP
correct.
also be the owners of the buildings?
Yes. Yeah. They're renovating and upgrading them for the use, but they're the owner of the entire property.
And will the housing be subsidized housing in terms of rental payments?
It can be, yes. It can be market rate as well. It depends on the clients that are structured to come in. But yes, they may have vouchers, some of them. They may have rapid rehousing dollars to help support them. The intent is to train people from the day they come in to end up in permanent housing that they own, ultimately, is what we want. Not on the property, but to get them on a pathway towards ownership. So, and part of that is let's take people right where they're at, with their income level, employment, et cetera. Let's bump them up where they're stable, where they can stand on their own, where they can support their own permanent housing that they live in, and go from there. So,
Okay, so will the residents be limited to single mothers? I think I read something here that that was sort of the target of it. Is that going to be
yes.
limited to single mothers?
And their kids. Yes.
Oh, one more thing. Will the property, since there's a good lot line adjustment happening, is there a fence that's going to be erected next to the vacant lots, or is it going to be open?
No, there'll be a fence along the entire line of the parking area that will kind of congregate that community of housing. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And by the way, our plan, I think, is as much as we can, and our grading permit is to construct that fence ahead of doing a lot of the grading on the project, both to keep dirt down and dust and noise as much as possible, but also just to continue to isolate the project to where the houses will be placed.
If and when it ever opens up, will you be accepting Section 8 vouchers?
Yes, we will.
I have a question. It's more for Donna, I think. It says there's a lot line adjustment in progress. What are they adjusting? Is the church lot getting larger, or?
The lot line adjustment is actually for the property that's along Zellman Court. I believe there's 3 parcels there now, and we're looking at probably doing 4 in the future for some single-family homes there.
I might add the lot line adjustments were minor, but they were to accommodate the setbacks and the space and everything else we wanted to accomplish. Done with me? Thank you.
We would like to open it up to public comment.
Good evening. My name is Zachary Farmer. I live on Lene Way, a block away from the proposed micro village project. I am against this project. And I don't know if you're aware, but there's two phases to this project. I've been referring to the project in its totality. Building an estimated 14 dwelling campus on a single acre lot within a lower density zone neighborhood absolutely, in my opinion, goes against the primary guiding principle of the Riverbank General Plan, which is maintaining our city's distinct small town character. The sudden change in dwelling density within the Zellman Court neighborhood will obviously damage our small town character, regardless of whether the phase two dwellings match the architectural style of the rest of the neighborhood. The issue here is dwelling density. Now, I learned from one of our city council people that the main reason why both phase one and phase two still being considered lower density is that these buildings are being considered ADUs, these micro houses. I assume this will require rezoning when both phases are together, but I was told, no, it's going to stay within lower density because these are ADUs. That surprises me because to your average resident, the purpose of ADUs is to allow homeowners to build a small dwelling on their property for grandma, not for building a village in their backyard. Frankly, the fact that the phase one dwellings are considered ADUs, it feels like a loophole is being used. Finally, this project's location does not serve the purposes of this project, in my opinion. Our neighborhood is on the developed outskirts of Riverbank. We're bordering farmland. Residents of the proposed project will have to rely on public transportation, not only for themselves, but for their children as well, because this area is not within the Riverbank School District. Furthermore, there is no intention to provide on-site staffing for this project, which is a must for the safety of the residents and the community at large. The accelerated timeline of this proposed project, the geographic placement, the lack of staffing and community accountability, and the ADU loophole makes it very difficult for our neighborhood stakeholders to adopt a positive attitude towards this project. It feels rushed. I think we can do better. Please do not approve this project in its current version. Thank you for your time.
If I might comment on that. This project is consistent with our tiny house village ordinance. This is in the R1 zoning. It does meet the density requirements as I explained. So the tiny house village is a permitted use. What you're looking at today is the architecture and the site and design of the tiny house village, not whether or not this use is permitted there. Thank you.
Evan Rice. I live on Zellman Court. This will be in my front yard. I bought my house 4.5 years ago. I asked what that building was next to me. It's a church. Awesome. They own the lot. Awesome. Never in my wildest dreams, 4.5 years later, did I think they'd be putting this particular project in there. I value it too, but it's none in your neighborhood, it's in mine. You got to think about that. Come on now. It's not going to add value to my home or my neighborhood. I agree that the folks need help. But I mean, are we going to be reimbursed? Our houses are going to be unsaleable at this point. No one's going to want to live there anymore. So I'm standing up knowing that I saw the last guy get squashed. I'm sure we will too, but it's not right, man. This is a neighborhood and you're going to put the state mini pad type deals in there. I don't get it, man. I don't see the sense in it. And I'd really appreciate it if you could kind of put yourself personally and take the fact that we have kids and we have families and I invested into this town. I'm not a transit. I invested here and I'll be here. That should have some value, I would think. And what's the race to the bottom? I mean, this does seem rushed to me and it does belong perhaps in Riverbank, but you don't throw it in the middle of somebody's neighborhood. That's not right, man. It's not freaking right. Think about it, please.
James Ashby. I live on Zellman Court. I'm the middle house, so I will be facing this property as well. I'm a first-time home buyers. Both my sisters are about 4 blocks away, so grew up off McHenry. So neighborhoods or Riverbank's always been a close, small community to me. So that's why I chose Riverbank. With this type of, I'd have to agree with Kevin, knowing this type of housing was going in prior to me purchasing this house, I would have not have purchased it. They had mentioned they would be taking Section 8 financial reimbursement or help. Again, Section 8 housing is not a great look. I don't think anybody here would have bought a house knowing there's Section 8 housing across the street from it. We all agree here. Nobody is against. We all agree that people do need help. However, we think there's a better way to do it. We have concerns about the trash, the water, sewer. There is parking. We understand that there is a small parking lot. However, I am a traffic engineer for the city, for Modesto, now Elk Grove. I know parking is a huge issue everywhere. People use garages or whatever, and they all have 3 or 4 cars, and they have kids. How they're single mothers. How old are the kids? Are the kids driving? Do they have a car? So now we're also concerned about the overflow parking as well. We have concerns about the drugs and alcohol, being that they are single mothers. Usually this comes from a type of domestic violence, and our concerns would be the husbands or boyfriends coming to visit and making a scene, bringing drugs and alcohol. We noticed the pamphlets say drugs and alcohol are not permitted on the premises, which is great. How are they going to enforce that? They say they're going to have one person check every month. That doesn't seem really viable to me. I don't think that's a great deterrent for that. We believe that the canal provides great access for drugs and alcohol coming in with the wall there. If you guys walk down the canal like we do on our normal walks, taking the dogs, there it's just a trash-ridden area. We think that would be a big issue as well. We noticed that you guys will be removing the basketball court where kids play almost every Friday night. They come and park there, and that makes it feel like more of a community for us. And then we have concerns with the changing of the lot lines, making it from 3 lots to 4 lots and adding single family homes. That is great. However, we have concerns that those 4 lots will also get tiny homes in the future. And now you're really high density in a small 5-house court. Thank you.
Have any more comments? Anything? Nope. Any questions or comments from the commission?
Just want to make sure I understood what Donna said, that we are here to approve the architectural plan for this complex. It's a done deal that this complex is coming. Is that correct?
That's correct. This is architectural and site plan review, which is required by our zoning code 120, which rules or regulates tiny house villages. It is a permitted use, yes.
Thank you.
Sir, close the public hearing.
Public hearing is closed. Does anybody want to make a motion?
Make a motion that we approve item 3.2 on the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call for resolution 2023-011 to approve the architectural and site plan review for the tiny homes on Morrill. Chair Basso,
Yes.
Vice Chair Stewart,
Yes.
Commissioner Zamora,
Yes.
Commissioner Dynan,
Yes,
and Commissioner Alterman.
Yes.
It's approved 5-0.
Moving on to item 4, Planning Commission comments.
yes, I'd like to share with my fellow commissioners. I attended a informational meeting about the North County Corridor Project and learned that the impact in southeast Riverbank is going to be severe. We're talking about closing Terminal Avenue for periods of time, redirecting Clarabelle Road for periods of time. It's going to be something to see. I just thought I'd share that with everyone.
I have no other comments. Move on to item 5, County Referral, Correspondence, and Information.
I received some information from the county that they are actively working on their housing element update. And there will be community meetings, and there is information on their website. And they'd like the surrounding communities to get involved and help them through this process.
And item 6, staff comments.
First of all, I would like to thank you for being available for this special meeting. I will be out of town starting on next Friday, not tomorrow, but the following Friday, and has had to cancel the September Planning Commission meeting. So I want to thank you for being available and helping to get these projects through the process, and so they didn't have to wait till the October meeting. Also, just like to, thank Costco for coming. I think that's going to be a big boon for our community as far as jobs and bringing other people to our community to be able to use some of our other retail stores and our parks and enjoy what we enjoy. It's a great small town community that cares about its people and tries to bring in the best retail and service projects that we can for you. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that being the end of it, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
The integrity of the